Discussion and possible action for approval of the following contracts for the continued improvements to the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion. Approve a contract with Total Shade LLC for additional shade purchase and installation. And B, approve a contract with Technically Integrated for the installation of audiovisual and electronic services. Mr. Neese.
Members of the council, I'd like to thank Councilman Miller for the dedication amount of time he has spent in assisting the staff in formulating the bid packets. I don't know if you ever seen one of our bid packets, but they're pretty lengthy, pretty thick, and a lot of detail involved with it. And I'd like to thank Mr. Miller, Councilman Miller, for his involvement in that. We prepared two separate bid packages. They're both interrelated projects. They deal with the pavilion. One's focused on providing additional shade over the amphitheater to provide shade. We did a great job shading the planters. Now we're going to shade the audience. So the shades will provide ample shade for the audience here. So that's the first package that we released. There were 5 or 6 interested parties. 2 applied. The lowest bidder was shade sale, total shade for approximately $108,000. The next bidder was approximately $40,000 more. The second bid package was for conduit, audio-visual, and electrical improvements so that we can get a basic sound system and lighting system to enhance the pavilion. So when we have events, we have promotions within the pavilion, it's plug and play. It makes it a lot easier and less hazardous for those people up on stage with all the wires that we historically had across the stage itself. We had a number of parties that were interested in that. 2 also applied. Low bidder was approximately $105,000. That was technically integrated at a local company here. So those are the 2 respective low bidders. We are confident in their abilities to check references and 2 quality companies. That being said, the funding mechanism is obviously the generous funds that we are receiving through Sanderson Lincoln. We have to authorize those funds since those funds now flow through the town. So the action in front of you tonight is to authorize those funds and the implementation of the respective projects. Be glad to address it.
I would like to thank Glenn and Gary and Melissa for their good work on this. At one point in time, it was fighting to come in at the generous amount that we would receive from Sanderson. And this actually comes in modestly below that, but nevertheless below that. So this is a no-cost, welcomed addition for the town. And thank you.
We forgot to look at the alternate for the audio-visual electrical work. We didn't show the alternate adder of the $2,987.60. That was for the 1.5-inch empty conduit to come out of the sound cabinet, go across the pavers in front of the stage over to the corner for future possible sound systems around Easy Street. So we only got to pull the pavers up once and not twice.
So you're proposing that we change the item B to increase the amount for...
To include the alternate adder.
A total of approximately $108,400.
$420.75. I'd like to make the motion to amend the audiovisual electrical contract from $105,433.15 to $108,420.75. That is an alternate adder for 1.5-inch. It's an empty conduit for future use.
You got your second. I have a motion and a second to alter the bid for technically integrated to a total of $108,421. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we can have a motion to accept the 2 proposed bids, the second bid as amended. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. And what we're voting on is to accept the first bid for the
Sales?
thank you, for the sales, and the second bid as amended for the sound system and lighting.
Jim Van Allen, over in Long Rifle. And looking over the paid bills for September and October that have to do with this particular subject, I noticed that we've already either spent or committed $12,800. And I couldn't find, in looking through any of the minutes, any approval from the council to spend that money.
At the meeting a number of months ago, the council authorized the mayor to spend up to $15,000, and the vice mayor also has that. That money was spent under that approval.
Approval for unusual disaster and
No, that's for anything.
for anything, sir.
For anything within that budget category. We had $300,000 approved in the budget for this item to put in the improvements to the amphitheater. I have approval within that to spend up to $15,000, and I approved the expenditure of the funds that you talk about in previous agenda items.
Mayor, members of council, and to further clarify, there's things that require us to spend money when we're preparing bid packages. You don't just prepare a bid package and hope for the best as far as your specs or design. There were specifications that needed to come from an architect to help define the scope of work for the respective project. So there were costs associated in preparing the bid package that is related to the respective costs that Mr. Van Allen has cited.
Total of $6,000 for the architect,
Correct,
2 checks for $3,000.
correct.
And is that for the sales or for,
Sales. I did the
just for the
engineering.
sales?
I did the engineering for all the electrical and sound,
We engaged
for
an
$0.
We engaged an architect to do a specific design for the sales, so that all bidders would be bidding on one thing. That was that expenditure.
I respectfully think that expenditures like that ought to go before the council. Thank you.
A motion and a second to approve the original proposal from Total Shade and the changed proposal from Technically Integrated. Are there any further questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Approved unanimously.